Hi everyone! Welcome back to our YouTube channel. I'm Cindy, Mrs. B.
I'm Mado, Mr. B.
Of Mr. and Mrs. B of Moss Design House. We're going to do another B home episode. So again, for those of you who are new to their channel, we're in the process of building our dream home, and we're gonna walk you through the process of what it takes to build your dream home. Let's give a quick update before we go to today's topic. What is happening to our house now?
Kaka-release lang ng permit.
I know, ang tagal guys.
Super tagal, almost a year.
Isang taon kaming nag-antay for the building permit, and it takes a while. Usually 2 months lang yan before they release the OR. But I think it's extra difficult now because of the pandemic. So for those of you who are building your homes, be ready for some delay because of the release of the permits due to the pandemic. We already have actually our dream team, but we're here to help you choose your dream team. So, ready ka na?
Game.
Okay, game. Who are the people that needs to be part of the dream team? We mentioned this already during the intro of our dream house, diba?
Yes.
So you have your architect,
contractor,
you have your contractor,
interior designers, and
engineers,
and project manager.
And then a project manager. So you need to have 5 professionals to be able to build your dream home. So let's start off with the architect. For those of you who are just starting out and in the search of an architect, let's establish first, what is the role of an architect?
Siya yung nag-design ng bahay.
Ganun kasimple yun? Tama naman siya. I just need to expound on it a little bit more.
Yeah.
The role of the architect is to ensure that from the time that you guys are planning the house until it gets constructed, it's all in accordance to the plan. And to make sure that it's suited to your lifestyle and to your liking. Some of the things that you have to look out for when you decide on the architect. So number 1 is that
he has time.
Okay, of course, you need to make sure that he has time.
Yeah, and making sure na nakita niya yung portfolios niya or works, actual works.
Yep, yeah. So that one. And then again, so as I've mentioned, he needs to be professional and board certified. So you need to make sure that the architect you're getting is well licensed. And then he needs to have a good relationship. Some of the signs that you need to look out for. What are the bad signs? Not naman bad signs, but parang it's a red flag. Oh, what is it?
Pag tinatawag mo sa telepono, biglang di ka sasagutin, may sa meeting, ganyan.
Ako, flexibility. I think the flexibility of an architect is important. He doesn't dictate what he wants, but instead of he listens and he tries to, conceptualize and make a design based on
the client needs.
And sort of like a collective effort of everyone. Yes. Because there are architects who are very very strict na eto lang dapat yung design nila. So for our dream home, we chose to go with architect Jano Eustachio, who has been our friend for about 20 years, a family friend for 20 years. Hi, Jano.
Hi. Good morning. Hello.
So, may gita? Wala na. Okay. Social distancing tayo ngayon, guys.
Okay.
The notion of a lot of people is that architects are only in charge of the outside. And then interiors are obviously the insides. But is there any other role that the architect plays?
Translate the vision of the client into a structure.
Right.
The client and the architect should have good rapport.
Right.
Yes.
We will be spending a lot of time together. A house is a very personal thing. You have to be comfortable with me.
Yeah, I think that's the key word. You have to find an architect that is you're going to be very comfortable with. I mean, there's a lot of, architects, those that you probably see in magazines, those who have outstanding work, but really how fitting is that architect for you and your family is the question. So I think, and along the way, we're going to get into a lot of conflicts.
Yes.
And we all know that.
Because if we put our minds sa end goal natin, And we value the end goal, which is, of course, to build a house.
Yeah.
And I think we're fortunate enough that, we've known each other for more than 20 years. 15 years tayo magkakilala. And, I could say that we basically share the same value. We've worked together.
Right.
And I would say the ultimate compliment for me as an architect is to have a peer who gets my services to build their house.
Right,
For me, that's the ultimate compliment.
And also because I think it's also very important that you have to at least appreciate the aesthetic of that architect. You're not gonna get an architect that's totally off-grid of what you want.
Yes.
So somehow, it's kind of like, in sync in terms of the look. I think that's very important. So, okay, let's talk about the house already.
Okay.
Usually, how long is the planning process?
Really depends. In my case, I would invest more time in the design process as opposed to rushing all the plans and then we build it and when we figure it out once it's built. Because at the end of the day, I would like to minimize changes. You know that.
Yeah.
And
Dami nun eh.
changes. It's easier to change it while it's a drawing as opposed to changing it while it's being built. It costs time. It costs money.
This house, we bought this in 2018. And it had an existing structure. So that existing structure, when Mado and I was discussing, when we bought it, we were debating.
Yes, we're debating.
And I said, okay, I want to retain the structure and maybe modify that so it fits our needs, right?
And I'm so against it, diba?
And he was against it kasi he kept on telling me, okay, it's our dream house. I don't want to retrofit something that's not ours, right? So, in my head, hindi, try pa rin natin. So, that's the reason why when we engaged with the architect, with Jano already, I said,
Pinagsaba ko na siya.
sabi ko, Jano, can you please try to check if we can use the house? And when he did the ocular here, I think right off the bat, he said, Cindy, I don't think you can use this house. So, what we wanted to do was to create a 3-story structure to be able to appreciate the view because the old house that was here, it wasn't like that. So I told him, let's try to see kasi you're saving that's also very important because
Budget.
I was very budget conscious, remember?
Common misconception is if we renovate, it's going to come out cheaper because it's a matter of renovation. 50-50 yun eh. Because if you're going to retain the house and you're not going to add another floor or extend it and just use it as is, yes, you're going to save money there. But in our case, we needed to extend a couple of rooms, and then you wanted to have another floor.
Yeah.
That would entail a lot of retrofitting. Retrofitting is to make the existing structure work for your new needs. So we did a computation. We actually got a structural engineer who did a study.
Yes.
If it's cost efficient to do it. It came out more expensive. So this is one of the reasons why it's best to get an architect or a professional prior to building anything, because that part of the responsibility of that professional is to inform the client if it's feasible or not feasible. You may come out spending more.
Anyway, thanks architect for joining us.
I know, it's like a pandemic season, di ba? So, pero you still went here.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm sure everyone learned a lot. I'm looking forward to us spending more time together. We still have 16 months to build their house.
Yeah.
So we're done with the architect. So now it's the engineering team. So let's identify sino ba yung engineering team.
Yeah, civil, mechanical, electrical.
Plumbing and sanitary.
Plumbing and sanitary.
Fire pro kung kailangan mo, diba? Okay, so the civil engineer or the structural engineer is basically the one who needs to make sure that your structure is obviously structurally sound. So he computes all the foundation, the rebars and all that. He works very closely with the architect. Kasi syempre, whatever the architect designs,
Siya yung nagko-compute eh.
siya yung nagko-compute, correct? And siya yung nagsasabi whether or not that design is possible.
Yeah, if it's safe or not.
Right, correct. So then magde-determine how big the beams are, how big the columns are, what are the distances of that columns in between one another. So next would be the
Mechanical.
So what does the mechanical engineer do?
Like lahat ng mga pipings
For aircons.
aircon.
Yeah. Computation of the aircons is actually the mechanical engineer. So basically, he just computes the volume of the room and how many aircons do you need in a space. I mean, what is the ventilation going to be? So, trabaho ng mechanical engineer.
Next is the electrical.
Electrical, I mean, is, electrical engineer computes for the electrical capacity of your
Load of the
room,
electricity. Yeah.
the load of the electricity. So, make sure that your loads are all taken into consideration when building your home. So, para hindi kayo nag-overload.
Yeah. And then plumbing engineer.
Okay, so plumbing and sanitary engineer. So what they do is basically design
Piping works.
that's water line,
Water.
that's drainage, sewer line.
Yeah.
Sometimes, the fire pro, sometimes if you have, sprinklers that you
Sprinklers.
want to be
Yes.
built in your home, he also designs that. So all these engineers are going to be part of your dream team. Now, that depends on you guys if you want these engineers to be part of your architectural team. Kasi minsan, it's the architect who handles all these things para hindi marami yung kausap nyo, diba?
Actually, mas maganda nga yun kasi at least architect lang kausap mo, tapos yung architect,
Release it
down
to
lang
the team.
down lang yun
Yep.
ano.
There, I mean, signs to look out for the engineers.
Again, time rin ulit.
Time for that, how fast they work into making your blueprint plans and your working drawings.
Same as the architect, flexibility.
Yup, oo. Kasi may iba kasing engineers who are very
Bookish.
Bookish. Yung tama yung term ni Mado. Meaning to say, they're not willing to explore or be experimental in non-conventional design. So if you're someone who's super, who wants to break out from the usual architectural design, you need to make sure that you have a good structural engineer who is willing to also, experiment and make sure that the structure is still sound.
Yes.
Also to note pala that if there is anything that, about the flexibility, if there is anything that you need to, kasi diba sometimes you have the costing already, tapos the cost is so high. Usually there is a term that's called value engineering. So what is that term? That means to say that the whole engineering team, including the architect, will study the plans and see where you can actually save.
Yes.
Diba? Parang ano ba yung excess na dinesign dun sa bahay that's making the cost skyrocket and reduce from there. So, need to make sure that your engineers are flexible in that way, na kaya nilang parang, okay, gagawa natin ng paraan, paano natin mapapababa yung cost. So, you have the architect, engineer. The third one that you have to hire is an interior designer.
Which is the most.
Yep, kami
Kami
yun, guys. So what is the role of an interior designer? Okay, so a lot of people get very intimidated with the role of an interior designer, but kasi yung iba dyan, they just really want to do things by their own, which is not a bad thing. But if you want things professionally done, at saka para hindi kayo nag-uulit-ulit ng trabaho, in the end, it's making it more expensive.
Yeah.
Hire a professional. So, an interior designer also does the planning hand-in-hand with an architect.
Yes.
Kaya sinasabi namin that when you hire an interior designer, it should be midway or if not, in the start alongside with an architect para hindi late yung pag-plans ng, outlets,
Saka less tibag.
Oo, kasi minsan pag
lagi
late na
nangyayari, less tibag ng tibag.
Rectifications, yung ganun. Kasi pag late na pumapasok yung interior designers, what happens is, she also has a concept in mind that's already posibleng not jiving with the architect.
Aligning.
So, it's not aligned with the architect. So, nangyayari, you spend more. So, interior designers will basically beautify the interiors. Again, it's not only about colors. It's not only about picking furnitures or not only about picking curtains. There's a whole science behind it. There's a study of the movement and space planning of comfort, ergonomics to make sure that your home reflects your personality and also suits your lifestyle. So the fourth one that you have to engage for your dream home is actually the most important person
Your best friend, contractor.
So the contractor is actually, basically, I mean, his description is that he's the one who's gonna build your house. Okay, in accordance to all the plans that will be done by all of the above. Yung na-mention namin kanina, architect, engineer, and the interior designer. In a previous episode, we've already mentioned, ways to negotiate with your contractor or how to save budget. But basically, there are two ways, no? So, number one, you bid out a project, right? So, when you bid out, you choose between different contractors. Of course, you have to look at their track record. You should be able to at least visit them. You get to talk to them and feel them. Mukha bang mabilang tong contractor na to, And, you need to be able to look at their background para to make sure na hindi kayo tatakbuhan din. You have to watch out for that. But, so there are two ways that the contractor will actually give you the cost proposal, diba? So the first one would be all in, basically everything that's gonna be in the specs and the floor plans and the working drawings, he will cost that out. And there's a second one wherein the materials will be provided by you.
By
Obviously, so that's called OFCI. So owner furnished, contractor installed. So basically, you will have to purchase all the materials. Siya na lang yung labor. Last na
is the project manager.
So you have you have engaged already your team. You already have your contractor. Sino ngayon yung mag-check and balance? That is the
role of the project manager.
He checks the plans versus what is happening. Dinadaya ka ba ng contractor mo sa materials or hindi? He works alongside with the architect as well because it's also the architect's role to check what is happening inside. Interior designer's role to check if the contractor is doing what he's doing based on your plan. So it takes a whole village to be able to build your dream home. And the project manager will really play a very important role in that.
Tsaka yung you make sure yung time.
Yes.
Diba? Yung kung na-deliver yung ganito, deliver yung ganyan. Siya yung...
tsaka delay. Basically, siya yung taga-pukpok. Project manager, police.
Yeah.
Siya yung police sa side. What are the signs to look out for project manager? Ako, isa lang.
Ano?
Mabusisi.
Tsaka hindi takot.
Ay, oo, tama yan. Dapat hindi takot. Hindi siya yung, one for the boys. Okay lang naman makisama yung project manager, but he needs to stand with authority because he needs to be followed. Hindi siya yung dapat madaling
Mabuli.
So, that's it. I think we've completed the dream team to building your dream home. So, you need to really pick wisely and choose using your head because they're the ones you're gonna be working with for the past 18 to 24 months in building your house.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching this very quick episode. So, if you like the video, subscribe.
And hit the notification bell, share, and like.
And read comments. All right, so again, this is Cindy, Mrs. B.
And Mado, Mr. B.
And you are watching Mr. and Mrs. B of Moss Design House.
Woo!
Bye!